Spin you around here, boom. All right, we're back at it, and seems like there's a little bit of interest for some builds, build information, I guess. People want to do V8 swaps. I don't blame you. I've definitely been down that road, but we haven't done one of these in a while. What I want to do is just take you through my garage, give you a tour, an update, and show you what I'm working on today. So I haven't done an update in quite a while, but I have been collecting, as always. And I've talked about this before. When I start to do a project, I get a little out of control with it. So if you start to observe the situation I have here, I'm sort of out of space when it comes to engines. So today what I'm doing is I'm going to dissect this 302. This one is a 351 Windsor. I think this is like a 94, so that's going to be a roller. This is a 5.0 302, so I believe this one was also a 94. So you got the 302 on the right, and you got the 5.8 351 on the left. You can see they don't look a whole lot different. I mean, this one's sitting on a cart, so it's taller, but you know, I'm not going to really get into the measurements necessarily because I do have to get this thing going. I listed it for sale as a long block, but actually I used pictures of the last long block that I sold. So yeah, I want to show you guys what I do with these things, and if I was going to do a V8 swap again, this is exactly what I'd do. Get a complete truck engine or whatever's available to you. For some of you guys, it might be an Explorer engine, which I would absolutely recommend starting with one of these first. It gives you all the accessories you need, and pull it in this way. So when you're cutting wires, take the plugs with it. Don't leave the plugs. If there's a plug, cut on the other side of it. Cut the vehicle as much as possible. Get every piece that's on this thing that's easy. You know, there might be some situations, like in my case, it was so wrecked I couldn't get the throttle cable off the pedal, so I had to cut it. I'll pull off this shield right here, and then I'm going to put it on that stand right there using the cherry picker. So it's nice because I only really do small block Fords, so I never really even have to adjust those stands. They just come right off, go on to the next one. Okay, I haven't even made it one bolt in, and I already want to talk about something. So this has cost me some time. Actually, I've had a bad situation involving these bolts. On the 302, these bolts thread through the crank and into essentially the oil pan, so there's a passage for oil to go through. On the 351 Windsor, this is a blind hole, so it doesn't go past through the crank and no oil can come out. As a result, the 302 needs sealant. Now, here's where the issue comes from. I used to think that these bolts, which happen to be the same bolts used to hold the ring gear in the 8.8 in, were for automatics, and that these bolts were for manuals. But now you see I've got two automatics here. They both have flex plates. There's no flywheel. But what do you see? I was wrong. That bolt for the 302 is longer, and that is an issue. Moving right along, so I got that thing bolted on there, and I started to take it apart a little bit, but I'm just going to get it onto the stand so I can do that a little easier. So yeah, I'm just going to go roll it over, lift it up, and join this together. Alright, just like that, that Iron Mammoth is on the stand, which I should have recorded because this thing flexed down like 2 inches. It's a little questionable condition in that tube right there, but anyways, we won't worry about that. Alright, now I gotta face the music and see if this thing breaks any bolts. Usually about 1 per 100,000 miles. I don't know that I've perfected the technique, but I'm gonna start out by trying to tighten the bolts first. Actually, I'm gonna start by taking out all of them but the corners, so that only the corner bolts are left. And then, after that, I will probably try to tighten them before I try to loosen them, and also hammer them a couple times, because these ones, one of them will probably break. Uh-oh. Alright, we got all of them out except for the corner snappers, so I'm going to start by turning down my impact setting and trying to first tighten them. It's about as weak as it gets. Do that for all the corners. Whoa. Alright, now let's go for it. Whoa. Broken. There we go. First one. Fail. Nope, that one doesn't want to cooperate either. Okay, once they break loose, that's when I start working them back and forth. So you can see over here, this one's moving. That one actually came out. Okay, how about this one? That one also came out. Alright, so we're doing good. We have at least 100,000 miles because that one broke. This one, I stripped the top of it off of there, so I'm going to have to remove this thing so I can get a better shot at that one. Intake manifold removal. I want to make sure that none of this coolant that I'm seeing here is going to end up in the ports. So what I'm going to do is close all the valves. So that's pretty easy. Just take the valve covers off and loosen the rockers. And normally, if this was an engine I was going to try to use, or if this was an engine that I wanted to ensure was ready to install, I would check the valves for leakage by pressurizing the cylinder with that air hose. But since this guy already said he's going to be tearing this engine down, I'm just going to go ahead and close it so that no water gets in there. Ooh, she's crusty. She is crusty. So there you go. First look inside this thing. I don't see any metal, but there's quite a bit of carbon, so this guy as well. But probably could have used a few more oil changes than it got, but you know, as long as there's not metal. Metal is what we don't want. So now, like I said, I will loosen up the rocker stands, and that will allow the valves to completely close, seat up, so that no water will be able to make its way into there. Let's see if my impact's got enough balls to do this. I'm not sure. So, phone died, and I took the opportunity, without the distraction of you guys, no offense, to not break the bolt actually in this corner. So that leaves me with only one. So I have no reason to believe this engine would be much over 200,000 miles. I've showed how I'm going to remove those before, and I did advertise this thing as having no damaged or broken bolts. So far, that's the first one, but I do intend to repair that. Sometimes these front ones like to break too, so I haven't got that far yet. I will set you guys back up while I go through that, but I got to pull that balancer. using just a regular old harmonic balancer puller right there. Pull the bolt first, obviously, and then I also did drain the oil, and there was a little bit in there. I have no reason to believe that this thing ingested any metal, but despite my best efforts, you can see I still got some dirt in those ports. That's why I closed those valves. But yeah, it looks all right. Like I said, all the threads survived except for that one. Sometimes I've had like 4 break off, but I even got a little bit protruding out of there, which makes it even easier. So next up is where the welder comes into play. Like I said, I've showed that before. Before I do that, though, I got to clean it up. I use like a little screwdriver like that, the hammer, and that wire wheel on the drill. So I'll clean it up and pull that, extract it, hope that none of these other ones break off, and then pull that balancer before I do that. And then we'll flip it over, pull the oil pan, the engine mounts, and that's it. That's as far as I'll go with this one. So getting on the home stretch. I've got almost 2 hours into this now, maybe even a little more since I started this morning. This is the most valuable part, I would say, off this engine, and it's pushing like 500 bucks between the rails and that lower, if you include the upper too, I guess. But yeah, those rails, if they don't leak, and that lower manifold, if there's no cracks and it's in good condition like these ones are, if you wait long enough, you can get 500 bucks for that combo if you split it up just right and sell it over time. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna get back to the long block tear down. You can see I've got the pile becoming assembled over here of all the stuff coming off of this thing. But all the ports look acceptable. I don't even think I'm gonna pull the spark plugs out of this thing. I don't know, depends on where this guy is at, but not bad so far. So I'll keep cranking away, set you guys back up, and we'll keep rolling. Is absolutely filthy still, even after the car wash. But it's truck engine, so you'll have that old boat anchor. Okay, well, no metal, looks pretty good. So this one's going to be the end. The guy did, in fact, purchase the engine, so that frees up a little space. The whole motive for this is to get that old junkyard short block on the stand. There's a few issues with it. But yeah, I just wanted to go over what I ended up with from this. So I got a 50-ounce imbalance pulley, the lower intake fuel injectors and fuel rail, like I mentioned earlier, as well as the upper intake. Those two are going to be, well, 3, I guess, 4 if you consider splitting the injectors from the rails from the intakes. I don't know, $400, $500, and then I've got that smog pump bracket. The smog pump itself is bad, so that's probably $100 there. 150, 200 in the harness, and then that front accessories, the cover for the timing chain with the water pump and pulley. I usually sell as a set with the bolts that came out of it, about $100, and then that crossover tube. So I don't know, do the math on that. In case any of you guys are wondering, I did sell that long block for $600, but I threw in a really nice Ford flywheel that I had. So anyways, I still got a lot more stuff kicking around, but at least now I can get that engine up off the floor on the stand and start doing some work on it. So that'll be a future video, but just wanted to take you guys along for a half day. I guess that was like a 4-hour process in the life of small block Ford junkyarding. So we got some more to tear down someday. I did hang, oh yeah, I got that upper intake too. That intake, I like to get these with the engine because it helps keep water out of them. Take them to the car wash and stuff, which I do with all these engines before I start. But yeah. Oh, also that throttle body. People like to buy that throttle body with the idle control valve. Maybe like $60 to $80 if you've got a really nice one. The one thing I would caution you against would be tearing these coolant hoses off. That's a big one why people buy them. Those things, the little nipples corrode that they're on. So you take the clamps off, cut it with the razor blade, and then peel it off so that nothing happens. But this throttle actually looks to not be the original, surprisingly. Maybe unsurprisingly, I don't know. I don't really know why people buy that throttle. I just know that they're worth a little money too. So if you take the time to split everything up into just individual pieces and sell the rails separate from the lower intake, separate from the injectors, separate from the throttle, separate from the upper, you could do a little better on them, but of course you do have time wrapped up. I'm probably 8 hours into this so far, and I found this engine without the transmission attached, so it made the job a lot easier. I was actually able to pull it by myself. But anyways, that is it for this one. Thanks for watching.